Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're going to be reviewing another video on why Australia is fucked.
While Australian families cannot afford groceries, our government has a proven track record of spending $50 billion on overseas operations that have nothing to do with us.
Israel and Iran are continuing to trade missiles as European leaders push for a resolution to the escalating conflict in the Middle East.
The Trump administration has bombed Iran with strikes President Trump claims have obliterated the country's nuclear enrichment facilities.
We have to be able to respond in that same environment to make sure we're able to protect the homeland.
Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Say what you will, but Trump is a man of action. If Joe Biden was in charge during this whole thing, I would have no faith that America would be able to handle whatever. Trump put actions into place. Maybe terrible, maybe. It's up to you to judge.
Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
It is an outrageous, grave, and unprecedented violation of the fundamental principles of the Charter of the United Nations and international law. The warmongering and lawless administration in Washington is solely and fully responsible for the dangerous consequences and far-reaching implications of its act of aggression.
We're having to reconsider Australia as a homeland from which we will conduct combat operations. Everything from our northern infrastructure, our supply chain.
It's so sad. I never thought something like this could happen.
Iran claims it was targeting military and intelligence headquarters nearby, but the Israeli government says Iran is using cluster munitions and targeting civilians.
Saying that we now have complete and total control over the skies of Iran. Nobody does it better than the good old USA. Donald Trump says his patience is wearing thin, and these posts to Truth Social today really are the clearest indication yet of the US position in this conflict with Israel and Iran.
After leaving it unanswered for almost 24...
Here we go. Let's see what Albanese is going to say about all of this. He's a big fan of Israel, right?
For hours as to whether his government supported the US strikes, this.
The world has long agreed that Iran cannot be allowed to get a nuclear weapon. And we support action to prevent that. That is what this is.
A clear and unequivocal statement from the Prime
Spoken like poetry. Great work, Albanese.
Minister that Australia backed Donald Trump's obliteration of Iran's nuclear enrichment program.
Right now, as you are watching this video, the Australian government has demonstrated once again how quickly they are willing to drain billions from our economy for overseas situations while our own people suffer.
Yeah, 10,000 people in the working class going homeless every night. And let's throw billions of dollars. You know, they need it more than us. Why don't we be stronger at our homeland? He's probably got millions of property, millions of dollars of to throw at property that he's focusing on over that.
The recent Iran-Israel tensions perfectly illustrate this pattern. Within days of the situation escalating, Australia had suspended embassy operations, deployed military aircraft, and committed to supporting U.S. operations. The government was ready to...
How can we get some of this revenue back that we've just spent on an overseas war that pretty much doesn't affect us? I mean, the nuclear war weapons do. Let's implement a sugary beverage tax. You know, a lot of people love sugary beverages. It's like one of the simple pleasures you can have in life over here because everything's so expensive. You can't afford housing. Yeah, let's chuck 20% on that. That'll help recoup a few bill.
Spend massive amounts on overseas involvement, while Australian families struggle with the worst cost of living crisis in decades. But here is what they never tell you. Every time Australia gets involved in these overseas situations, it costs us at least $50 billion over 5 years. That is money we do not have for conflicts we did not start in regions thousands of kilometers away from us.
The operation President Trump planned was bold, and it was brilliant, showing the world that American deterrence is back. When this president speaks, the world should listen.
This is terrorism carried out by a state and a blatant violation of international law.
Now let me be very, very clear. This video is not about taking sides in any international conflict. I am not here to tell you who is right or wrong. I am here to raise the voice of the common Australian person. The Australians who are struggling with the worst cost of living crisis in decades. Our families who cannot afford rent, while our hospitals are failing and our infrastructure is crumbling. And yet our government consistently prioritizes spending massive amounts on overseas operations instead of fixing its own backyard.
After US Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth told our Defence Minister Australia needs to budget an extra $40 billion a year on defence. Could our Defence Department even meaningfully spend the sudden 64% increase in funding our great ally now wants to see?
President Trump and I will be counting on you.
If anyone knows anything about war, it is a way of generating profit, especially for the US. Money's printed, inflation goes up, money has to flow into somewhere. That's why assets always rise. It's not that house prices are going up, it's just the money that you purchase them with is going down. That's why everything priced in Bitcoin goes down. Everything gets cheaper when you price it in Bitcoin. Start dollar cost averaging. I would, before it's too late, before companies buy it all up. There's nothing left. I know I'm going on a rant, but let's keep watching.
We ask, and indeed we insist, that our allies and partners do their part on defense. Our defense spending must reflect the dangers and threats that we face today. Because deterrence doesn't come on the cheap. Just ask the American taxpayer.
Chapter 1. The immediate costs are always staggering. Let me show you the pattern with the most recent example. When the Iran situation escalated, Australia immediately suspended embassy operations and began evacuating over 4,200 Australians from the region. That evacuation alone cost taxpayers at least $100 million.
Australia's embassy in Iran has closed, with the diplomats moved to Azerbaijan. All Australians who can leave the country are urged to do so. Australian officials have also been helping a few dozen Australians leave Israel over the Jordanian border. The Foreign Minister has confirmed defence planes are being deployed to the Middle East to help more Australians out once airspace reopens.
But that is just the beginning. The government deployed military aircraft to the Middle East for evacuation purposes. Each deployment of our C-130 Hercules aircraft costs approximately $25,000 per hour to operate. A single round trip to the Middle East takes 20 hours of flight time. That is $500,000 per aircraft per trip.
Sounds like a great use of money.
Multiple aircraft making multiple trips over several weeks means immediate costs of $200 to $300 million, and that is before any actual military involvement. The government also establishes crisis response teams in these regions. This involves deploying diplomatic staff, security personnel, and support teams. Based on previous deployments, this costs at least $50 million per month to maintain.
Iran had an opportunity to comply. They chose not to. and there have been consequences of that.
But here is where it gets really expensive. Australia consistently deploys military officials and specialists to U.S. command centers during these situations. We are not just evacuating people. We are actively participating in operational planning every single time Australia gets involved in overseas situations. The costs explode beyond all initial estimates. Afghanistan was supposed to cost $1 billion. It ended up costing $10 billion. Iraq was supposed to be quick and cheap. It cost us $2.4 billion. The pattern is always the same. Initial low estimates, mission creep, and final costs that are 5 to 10 times higher than promised. Chapter 2. The energy price. Explosion pattern. But the direct costs are nothing compared to what these overseas situations do to our energy prices. Every Middle East crisis sends oil prices soaring, and Australian families pay the price.
There's always a trickle-down effect. It always has to trickle back to home, prices going up. Cost of groceries are almost impossible for most people these days. I've been budgeting for such a long time that it's in my habits. It's easy for me. But it's easy to go up, but it's never easy to come down. That's why delaying gratification as long as you can put you ahead.
During the recent Iran tensions, oil jumped 20% in just over a month. Analysts warned it could hit $120 to $150 per barrel if situations escalate. This is the same pattern we see every time. Here is what that means for ordinary Australians. Every $1 increase in crude oil prices adds 1 cent to petrol prices at the pump. A $40 per barrel increase means petrol prices rise by 40 cents per liter. When petrol was around $1.78 per liter, these situations can push prices to $2.20 per liter. For a family filling up a standard car, that is an extra $25 per tank, or over $1,300 per year in additional fuel costs. The Strait of Hormuz carries 20% of global oil consumption and 25% of global liquefied natural gas trade. Any disruption there sends oil prices to $150 to $200 per barrel almost overnight.
A fifth of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Its closure would see fuel prices rocket.
But there is this that is happening as well here. The Strait of Hormuz, I think that this is really important, is that you've seen the Iranian government, according to state media, putting in motion plans to seal off the Strait of Hormuz. That's a significant trade channel right there. Over 20% of oil going through that route that is right there. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was asked about this today, in which he said that he believes that if Iran does make that decision, it would be a terrible mistake and, quote unquote, economic suicide. But that is a development that we're watching very closely here, because that could have global ramifications here.
That pushes petrol prices above $2.50 per liter and triggers global energy crises. Energy analyst Saul Kavonik warns this flows through to electricity prices via...
It's actually crazy how electricity prices keep going up. Surely there is a way to fix this in Australia. I'm sure if Albanese had the confidence or to reach out to Elon, there would be some game plan he could put in. Something to do with batteries, something. There must be something. We have these band-aid little rebates that are given out that I've lowered electricity bills, by $150. That's really helping Australians. Yeah, it's a band-aid because as soon as the government rebates run out, energy prices go up to recoup that loss of income anyway. It's just crazy how people aren't catching on to this. We need to solve problems. A cure, prevention is way better than a cure. There needs to be action, and nothing's happening.
International gas prices, affecting nearly every single thing that you buy and use on a day-to-day basis.
Yep.
The economic modeling is always terrifying.
Because farmers need fuel. It reflects grocery prices. It's just never ending.
Sustained oil prices above $120 per barrel add 2 to 3% to inflation, force the Reserve Bank to delay interest rate cuts, and can push Australia into recession. This happens every single time we get it.
FYI, if Australia isn't, on paper in a recession, we're definitely in a recession. Look around everywhere. Everyone is struggling. The middle class almost doesn't even exist anymore. It's not looking good at this point in time.
Involved in Middle East situations. Chapter 3, the military spending blowout pattern. Now let me talk about the real costs, ongoing military involvement. Australia's defense spending is already at $56 billion per year, but overseas operations always require additional funding on top of the regular budget. Based on our previous involvements, here is the established pattern. Initial deployment costs for significant Australian presence run $2 to $3 billion in the first year. This covers equipment transport, base establishment, personnel deployment, and operational support.
Head of the Defence Department says it would be feasible to dramatically ramp up spending on our military, in line with the demands of the Trump White House.
Yes, and the PM really does not want to have this debate publicly about defence funding, but many in defence circles are already talking about it anyway, and are also talking about the changing threats that Australia faces.
But the ongoing costs are where it gets really expensive. Australia spent $8.5 billion on Afghanistan over 20 years.
And I'm sure half of the Australians, more than half, don't even know that we were doing anything in Afghanistan. I sure didn't know that we had military over there. Obviously, I'm not that in-depth in it. But I think at this point, I'm going to stop the video because it seems to be going on and on about military. And I prefer to stick on the topics of housing, prices in Australia going up, solutions. I think dollar costing into Bitcoin, things that can't be inflated because the government's going to continue to print money no matter what. If any issue comes up, they're going to have to print. And if they don't print, they're going to tax you. Purchasing power is going down. We really need to look at ways of getting ahead, because working a full-time job isn't even cutting it half of the time these days. That'll be it for this video. I'm going to film some more of these commentary videos and keep it up. Not that you care about what my opinion is, but I think I do have some good bits of information to throw out there. So if you do have any more videos that you want me to do my commentary on, just comment them down below. The original video is going to be in the description, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.